There are very few names in history that can still silence a room. Alexander. More than 2,300 years after his death, people still argue over one impossible question. Was he history's greatest military genius, or simply history's luckiest conqueror? Imagine standing before a man who had never lost a battle. Not one. From the mountains of Greece to the deserts of Egypt, from the mighty Persian Empire to the edge of India, every army that stood against him eventually fell. Kings surrendered. Empires collapsed. Cities opened their gates in fear. And yet, the most powerful man on earth died before his 33rd birthday. No one knows exactly how. His empire shattered almost immediately. His tomb remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. This is the story of Alexander the Great, the king who never lost. But perhaps the greatest battle of his life was the one he could never win: death. The year is 356 BC. In the ancient kingdom of Macedon, a prince is born to King Philip II and Queen Olympias. Legends began surrounding him almost immediately. Some claimed lightning struck the temple of Artemis on the night he was born. Others whispered that Olympias dreamed a thunderbolt entered her womb. In the ancient world, people believed these weren't coincidences. They believed destiny had arrived. Alexander grew up unlike ordinary princes. His father transformed Macedon into the strongest military power in Greece. His mother filled his mind with stories of heroes, especially Achilles, the fearless warrior from Homer's Iliad. Alexander didn't just admire Achilles. He wanted to become him. At 13 years old, he encountered a horse no one could tame. The animal kicked, screamed, and threw every rider to the ground. Philip's finest horsemen gave up. But young Alexander noticed something everyone else had missed. The horse wasn't wild. It was terrified of its own shadow. Alexander simply turned the horse toward the sun. The shadow disappeared. Moments later, he was riding the magnificent stallion with complete control. That horse became famous as Bucephalus. It would carry Alexander across continents for nearly 20 years. Watching his son, King Philip reportedly said, "My boy, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedon is too small for you." Few fathers have ever made a prediction so astonishingly accurate. Alexander's education was equally extraordinary. His tutor wasn't just another philosopher. It was Aristotle himself. One of history's greatest minds taught the young prince about science, politics, medicine, literature, ethics, and the nature of the world. Alexander learned that true leadership required more than swords. It required curiosity. Throughout his campaigns, he carried books, studied foreign cultures, collected strange plants and animals, and encouraged scientific exploration. Even while conquering nations, he remained a student. But fate moved quickly. When Alexander was just 20 years old, King Philip was assassinated during a public celebration. In an instant, the young prince became king. His enemies celebrated. Neighboring kingdoms believed the inexperienced ruler would be easy to defeat. Several Greek cities revolted. Tribes along Macedonia's borders prepared for war. Many thought Alexander's reign would end before it truly began. Instead, it had only just begun. Alexander moved with breathtaking speed. He crushed rebellions before they could unite. The city of Thebes, once one of Greece's greatest powers, dared to resist him. Alexander surrounded it. Within days, the city was destroyed. The message echoed across Greece. Resistance would not be tolerated. But Alexander's ambition stretched far beyond Greece. He dreamed of defeating the greatest empire on earth, the Persian Empire. It covered millions of square kilometers, from modern Egypt to Pakistan. Its king, Darius III, ruled over perhaps 50 million people. Alexander commanded fewer than 50,000 soldiers. On paper, the war seemed hopeless. History rarely obeys paper. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia. Legend says he threw a spear into the ground and declared the continent won by conquest. His first great battle came at the river Granicus. Persian commanders believed the river itself would stop the Macedonian advance. Instead, Alexander charged directly into the water. Arrows rained down. Spears crashed together. At one terrifying moment, a Persian nobleman swung an axe toward Alexander's exposed head. Another Macedonian officer struck first, saving the young king's life by mere seconds. It would not be the last time death reached for him. 1 year later, the world witnessed the Battle of Issus. Darius himself arrived with an enormous army. Ancient writers claimed hundreds of thousands of Persian soldiers. Modern historians believe the numbers were much smaller, but still vastly larger than Alexander's force. Everything depended on one moment. Instead of attacking the army, Alexander targeted the king. He knew something timeless about human psychology. If the leader falls, confidence collapses. As Macedonian cavalry charged directly toward Darius, panic spread. Then the unimaginable happened. The king of Persia turned his chariot around and fled. Watching their ruler escape, Persian troops lost hope. One decision transformed the battle. Not because Alexander destroyed every soldier, but because he broke the enemy's belief. Sometimes wars are won long before the final sword is drawn. Victory after victory followed. The cities of Phoenicia surrendered, except one, Tyre, an island fortress sitting nearly a kilometer offshore. Its massive walls rose directly from the sea. Everyone considered it impossible to capture. Alexander refused to accept impossible. Instead of abandoning the siege, he ordered an entire causeway built across the sea, stone by stone, tree by tree. His army created a road where none existed. For 7 exhausting months they worked while defenders attacked from above. Finally, the walls fell. Even today, part of that ancient causeway still exists beneath the modern city. Sometimes determination leaves marks that survive thousands of years. Soon Alexander entered Egypt. Unlike other conquerors, he wasn't welcomed with fear. He was greeted as a liberator. The Egyptians crowned him pharaoh. He founded a new city bearing his own name, Alexandria. That city would later become one of the greatest centers of knowledge the ancient world had ever seen. Its legendary library attracted scholars from every corner of civilization. Alexander wasn't merely conquering territory. He was reshaping history. Then came perhaps his strangest journey. He crossed the desert to visit the Oracle of Siwa. What happened inside that sacred temple remains unknown. Some believe the priests declared him the son of Zeus. Others think the conversation was kept secret forever. Alexander never revealed exactly what he heard, but witnesses noticed something. When he emerged, he seemed even more convinced that destiny had chosen him. The final confrontation arrived in 331 BC, the Battle of Gaugamela. This was the showdown that would decide the fate of the Persian Empire. Darius selected open ground perfect for his massive army. He even flattened the battlefield so his deadly chariots could charge freely. Everything favored Persia, except one thing: Alexander. As the battle unfolded, he deliberately pulled Persian forces away from their strongest positions. He created a gap. Then, with astonishing precision, he led his elite companion cavalry straight through it. Like lightning splitting a storm, once again, Darius fled. The greatest empire on earth collapsed. Babylon surrendered. Susa surrendered. Persepolis, the magnificent ceremonial capital of Persia, fell into Alexander's hands. A 25-year-old king now ruled the largest empire the world had ever seen. But success carries its own dangers. The farther Alexander marched, the more he changed. His soldiers had followed him for nearly a decade. They were exhausted. Thousands had died. Still, Alexander wanted more. He pushed east into lands no Greek army had ever seen, crossing towering mountains, burning deserts, violent rivers, until finally he reached India. There, he faced King Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes River. War elephants thundered across the battlefield. Many Macedonian horses panicked at the sight of these enormous creatures. Yet Alexander adapted once again. His tactics overcame another seemingly impossible challenge. After the battle, Alexander asked the defeated Porus how he wished to be treated. Porus answered, "As a king." Alexander smiled. "That is exactly how you shall be treated." Rather than humiliating his enemy, he restored Porus to power. Sometimes greatness is measured not by how you defeat your enemies, but by how you treat them afterward. Yet even legends have limits. Alexander wanted to continue farther east. His army refused. For years they had marched through endless wars. Thousands of kilometers separated them from home. Standing beside the Bias River, the soldiers simply said, "No." For perhaps the first time in his life, Alexander could not conquer what stood before him. Not an army, not a fortress, but the will of his own men. Reluctantly, he turned back. The journey home proved even deadlier than many battles. The Gedrosian desert claimed countless lives through thirst, heat, and starvation. Even Alexander could not defeat nature. Then, in 323 BC, at just 32 years old, Alexander fell seriously ill in Babylon. Some believed he was poisoned. Others suspect malaria, typhoid, or another deadly disease. The truth remains one of history's enduring mysteries. For days his condition worsened. His generals gathered around his bed. They asked one final question: "To whom do you leave your empire?" According to one famous tradition, Alexander whispered, "To the strongest." Whether he actually said those words remains uncertain. What followed is not. His generals immediately turned against one another. The empire fractured. Decades of brutal wars followed. The greatest empire on earth broke apart almost as quickly as it had been built. And then, Alexander disappeared. Not from memory, from history itself. His body was placed in an elaborate tomb. Roman emperors later visited it. Julius Caesar is believed to have seen it. Augustus reportedly placed flowers upon it. Then, somewhere through the centuries, the tomb vanished. Despite countless expeditions, no one has found it. One of history's most famous men lies in an unknown grave. So, how should we remember Alexander the Great? As a brilliant military genius whose strategies are still studied today, as a visionary who spread ideas, cultures, languages, and knowledge across continents, or as an ambitious conqueror whose relentless wars brought unimaginable suffering? Perhaps he was all of those things. History rarely gives us perfect heroes, only remarkable human beings, capable of extraordinary achievements and profound flaws. Alexander never lost a battle, yet time defeated him, death defeated him, and the empire he built with unmatched determination could not survive without him. But maybe that isn't the true measure of greatness. Perhaps greatness is not about living forever, or building something that never falls. Perhaps it's about leaving an idea so powerful that more than 2,000 years later, the world still whispers your name, Alexander, the king who never lost, and the man who proved that even the greatest conqueror can never conquer eternity. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please take a moment to like this video, share it with fellow history enthusiasts, and subscribe for more fascinating documentaries exploring the world's greatest civilizations, untold stories, and enduring mysteries. Thank you for watching. Until our next journey through time, stay curious.